So I've shown you my favourites, now it's time for the other end. Here are my bottom 10 Stephen King adaptations. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Now, I've already covered all of Stephen King's books. Go and check out any of my videos to see what I thought of those, and maybe check out this random special up here as well to give you an idea of some of my book coverage. And if you like what you see, hit subscribe so you don't miss any videos in the future. But this year is the start of when I go through Stephen King's movies and adaptations. Last time out, I gave you my top 10, and in this video, I'm giving you my bottom 10 right here and now. And don't forget to let me know your least favourite Stephen King adaptations. I'd love to hear them, especially the bad ones. It's always good to see which ones people like the least. Now, before I get into my ranking, a couple of bits of plugging for stuff I do. First of all, hit the link up there to subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get an e-version of my mini collection Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror for free just for signing up, and then every week in your inbox you'll get a short story from me and you'll get an indie horror author recommendation for you to go and check out. Not a bad deal, right? Yeah, pretty good. Now, another thing you can do to support me, as well as subscribing to my newsletter on my channel, is to pick up a copy of the Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book, which I wrote last year. More than 3,000 questions to test your knowledge of the world of Stephen King, all of the books, all of the movies and everything else. You can get it on Amazon right there. And let's just take a quick look at the lovely cover of this while that link permeates a bit, and you can get it on Barnes & Noble as well. And if you've already got a copy, then please consider leaving a review on any of those places and on Goodreads as well. It really helps spread the word and get this book under the eyes and noses of more constant readers out there in the world. So it's time to go into my bottom 10 Stephen King movies and adaptations, and as with the top 10, I'm going to keep this spoiler free, and I would love to hear your choices as well. And I should also point out that for the purposes of this list, to try and keep it, well, relatively short and snappy, I've ignored sequels because, well, basically life is too fucking short. So let's jump in, shall we? Here are my bottom 10 Stephen King adaptations. So at 10, it's the Firestarter remake from 2022. Now, this was a rare example of a remake that I was actually looking forward to. The original version just didn't quite hit the mark for me, and I thought it had potential to be done in a much better way. And for the first 30 minutes, I felt totally justified in that. The opening half an hour of this movie is terrific, but then it just loses direction and completely comes off the rails and ends up being this really confusing and frankly crap piece of cinema that probably you've already forgotten about. It certainly won't be one that gets talked about much in the future. And number 9, the Tommyknockers. Now, given the lack of quality in the source material, I guess it's not too much of a surprise that this was a bit of a dud. But honestly, this miniseries was even worse than the book. Kind of visual proof that you just cannot polish a turd. At 8, the 2013 remake of Carrie. Now, Carrie never needed to be remade, certainly not for a second time, and this CGI-laden thing is just crap. It's an abomination. It deserves to be deleted. The only redeeming feature of this movie is the unhinged and unnerving performance of Julianne Moore as Margaret White, but even that I can do without. Just get in the bin. At 7, Desperation. Now, Mick Garris adaptations are often a little flawed, but generally quite fun. This one is certainly flawed and doesn't really have much of the fun to it. Admittedly, a tough book to get right, but this miniseries definitely ain't it. Ron Perlman as the deranged cop Collie is excellent, and because he's right at the start of it, you will go into this thinking, oh, this is going to be great. But then for the remaining 10 hours or however fucking long it is, it's not really 10 hours, God, you just want it to end. So, yeah, not good. At 6, Bag of Bones. And oh look, it's Mick Garris again, this time leading Pierce Brosnan through a pretty awful adaptation of a book that is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, really. Somehow this came out in 2011, despite looking like it should have come out 20 years before that. The acting is really campy, the effects are not great, the scripting, the pacing, everything else pretty weak. It is not good. Not good at all. At 5, Dreamcatcher. Now you have to ask yourself the question, how did a movie with this cast and this big a budget get it so damn wrong? Well, dodgy source material doesn't help, but it just loses itself. The opening half hour is fairly strong, but then it just goes completely off the rails, loses any sense of direction, and just becomes really, really silly, which is a shame, because just like in the book, the 4 guys playing the friends at the heart of this story are really likeable and really believable as a quartet of best friends since childhood. But then we get to the point where one of the characters uses a gun as a phone and I'm out. At 4, Dolan's Cadillac. Absolute fucking garbage. Next, at 3, The Dark Tower. Okay, so this really is the one that still pisses off a lot of constant readers. And there are loads of things wrong with this. The things that are right with this, Idris Elba as Roland and Matthew McConaughey as the Dark Man, both excellent, but both given very little to work with. And as a result, they really struggled to have any impact on it. This film just really sucks, and it's driven by this sense of arrogance that came from nowhere and didn't have any justification with it. The producers were so set on making this franchise that they had planned that they didn't focus on the important job of making the first movie good. This movie's confusing if you've not read the book. This movie is confusing if you've read the book. It is a complete and utter letdown, and at times looked like it was gonna stop any meaningful adaptation of The Dark Tower ever happening again, because they shat the bed so badly on this. Just thank goodness that Mike Flanagan has got his Amazon deal and he is picking up the reins of the tower and hopefully getting things back on the beam. Maybe if he keeps those 2 leading men, that could be a nice little way of starting things off. At 2, Cell. Now this is another one I went in with incredibly low expectations and was still disappointed by. It is truly, truly an awful film. Just be gone. But it's not the worst, because at number 1 is Mercy, the only movie I can think of that makes the idea of watching Cell sound relatively appealing. So this is loosely based on the excellent story Grammar, and this movie is truly fucking abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. When I get to covering this and have to offer 19 reasons to watch this, I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do. So there we go, that was my bottom 10 Stephen King adaptations of movies. Do let me know your least favourites. I'd absolutely love to hear them. Let me know what you thought of my picks as well. Are there any howlers that I've missed? You know, ignoring all of those silly Children of the Corn sequels, of course. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and hit this random special up here that I'm going to put up so you can go and check out some of the other stuff I've done. Of course, if you're here for the books, well, so am I. Look at my shelves. I've covered all of Stephen King's books already. Do click around and see what you find out. And next time out, I'm going to be bringing you my first book special of 2023. So stick around for that. But other than that, well, I'll see you soon.